Hello again, Cons here. Today we are doing Gunlance. Yeah, so Gunlance is one of those weapons that I never played before. This is like extremely fresh. With Sword and Shield, I at least did like one Sword and Shield attempt on Alatreon a while back. So technically speaking, wasn't entirely the first time, but with Gunlance, I just straight up hadn't played this weapon before. So yeah, this is entirely new to me. I'm using the Fatalis Gunlance. I'll talk about the set at the end, but I'm using Fatalis Gunlance with an emphasis on slaplancing because it's a pretty good matchup for Fatalis, and also it's a little bit easier to get the hang of. Now, just a couple of notes right at the start, I guess. This isn't going to be optimal gameplay. The round takes like 13 minutes, which is a pretty good time for somebody so new to Gunlance, in my opinion. But obviously, it's not necessarily going to be all the optimal punishes and stuff like that, so keep that in mind. Another thing is that the worm stake, or whatever it's called, the little stake you shove into their face, not the slinger ammo thing, that's a really good punish. That does a lot of damage on Fatalis, it's like 100 per tick. However, those individual ticks do roughly 30% of the part damage that they're supposed to do. Well, not supposed to do, but they have like a 30% part damage modifier. So they do 70% less part damage. Also, look at this terrible AI, no cons. But yeah, they do like 70% less part damage than you would hope. And what that means is that they're really bad to take out Fatalis with, like in terms of breaking its horn in the first phase. He will not con. Jeez. See, even I get bad AI. A lot of people are like, oh, you always just get good cons, but look, see, terrible AI. But yeah, so the reason I'm not worm staking when he cones is because I want to take advantage of like breaking the horn in first phase, pretty much. I will worm stake if I have time after the 3 slaps, like here for example. Because I was really close to his face when he coned, because I had him pinned up against a wall, I was able to worm stake without sacrificing anything. But if you're struggling to get the horn break on time, then stopping that might be a good idea. Also remember that the little bite you can super armor through using moves. But yeah, I'm just reloading my worm stake. I don't know if that's called worm stake. I can't remember what the slinger ammo one is called. But anyway, so the plan is to bait cons until he does that. I have 3 points of evade extender. And so you can use the back hops or the forward slides, forward little dashes to get away from his like cone and get into position. And then once you're in position, obviously punish accordingly. I go for the upwards, I go for the slam and then the sweep. And then if I'm close enough when he starts, I will often do a worm stake afterwards. Or if I don't have enough time for that, I'll do a reload and then a slam. A little bit quicker than a worm stake, and you're less likely to trade with the puddle afterwards. However, it's obviously less damage. So we've gotten 2 of our flinches. We're probably not going to break the first horn in first phase, but we did get a decent amount of damage with evasion mantle off. Yeah, I guess the other thing is, I said I'll talk about the set at the end, but so you can skip to that if you'd like. But my evasion mantle has 2 points of part breaker in it. And so that's why I'm so desperate to get good damage out during part breaker. Now here I could obviously hit his chest, but again, I want to like do as much damage to the head in phase 1 when he's most likely to con. So unfortunately here, not enough time to do anything. That's the other thing you can do, is instead you can reload at the end and then do an upward slash, just a regular poke. If you have time. That's often, but if you go for it and you take a risk, then you can get punished for it. So you got to play accordingly. Those are basically my 3 punishes. Is I will do my upward swing, and you can see the back hops. I will do my upward swing, I'll do my slam, and then my sweep. And then if I have time, I'll reload and worm stake, or I'll reload and slam, or I'll reload and poke. Yeah, so that was a pretty good phase 1. We got a couple of cones after some really bad AI at the start. Generally, the AI tends to even itself out, although I would have liked better AI on this one. In phase 2, we are going to use the little trick to knock him down using the roaming ballista. Unfortunately, I didn't get the first head break in time, which is a bit of a shame, but it could be worse. I was messing around with strats where I don't use the roaming ballista until I get the first head break, but it just made things way too complicated. Yeah, the thing is, if you are landing worm stakes, the fact is you're probably not going to break the horn in phase 1, because the worm stake does so little part damage that you're just sacrificing a lot, and so you're reaching his threshold for transitioning to the next area before you actually break his horn. That's just a fact of life. If you really want to get that horn break, run a couple of points of part breaker on the set itself, and don't use the worm stake at all. Just focus on slamming and sweeping. When he's down, I like to take so I use the little infinite combo with slaplance, and then I'll usually worm stake at the end. You got to be a little bit careful, because his head will often just phase through you, in which case you'll miss it. And you'll see that in phase 3 we actually whiff like 4 of those worm stakes accidentally, and you know, I mean 4 worm stakes, if they're like 1500 damage each, you can obviously see how that would add up. This is the issue I was talking about. His head was at 1 HP. This is what happens when you get to the head break threshold during a down. Unfortunately, a lot of that damage was wasted because of the roaming ballista, but it's okay. It's not a big deal. I did regret not tenderizing and enraging before breaking his horns. That was a big mistake, but you know, what can you do? And again, I usually try to end on a worm stake, but I forgot here, which is the yeah. As I said, you know, I'm fairly new to Gunlance, and so I'd actually like to continue doing this run and get a better time, but at the moment it's probably not going to be an option. I'm not talking a huge amount about the gameplay. I don't know. Like I think the punishes pretty much speak for themselves in these phases. So far, I've just done nothing but bait cones, use a roaming ballista, and then punish the head while it's been down. Now it gets a little bit more complicated than that, but not too much. I like to do a mixture of upward swings, little pokes, and slams. And you saw in phase 1 when he was on the all fours, and I used the fact that you can super armor through the small bites to land off the full sweep. That is another thing that you should do. Yeah, okay, so we've got cone. Always better to play safe than sorry, in my opinion. Here, because I was so slow, I'm not going to really have enough time to do anything, but okay, he staggered anyway. Now he's fairly close probably to getting the next horn break, maybe 1,000. Oh, whoops. Okay, almost died there. Yeah, between the 2 binders that you get in phase 3, that should be enough to finish off the damage necessary to get the oh, and also you can see that I used the momentum from the advancing slash to get through. Oh, and then you can see me whiffing a worm stake. I used the momentum of the movement that you get from doing this sort of advancing upward slash to cover the rest of the distance out of the cone rather than dashing forwards. Obviously, that means you can get into the combo earlier and might be able to get like an extra hit off, but it's obviously also like a lot more risky because you're relying on that really iffy move with a lot of end lag to hopefully take you out of the cone, but it can be quite difficult to aim well. And you saw that I whiffed one of the hits from that combo because of the fact that it put me in the position that I wouldn't have liked to be in. So yeah, that's probably more of a thing for better Gunlance players to attempt. Regarding shelling, I don't use shelling at the moment just because it's kind of tedious to reload constantly. It's not a big deal. But mostly I just figured because slaplance exists, I'd rather do that for now, and maybe in the future I'll try a shelling run. If you are shelling, I think you got to run skills like artillery. But right now I'm focusing pretty much DPS. But anyway, I said I'll talk about the set at the end. Over here, you can go for this worm stake, but unfortunately I was just positioned a little bit badly. It is a little bit tough to land. You got to be a bit risky there. Sorry, you got to be a little bit like you got to be in a good position to actually land that one. Now during phase 3. Because I want the second horn break because I'm still fairly new, you got to sort of even out between going for the chest and going for the head. You got to strike a decent balance. It can be quite difficult to, but it's worth it in the end just to make sure that you can try and get that second head break. As I said, you've got the 2 binders. I've used one already. After the second binder, that would pretty much guarantee it. But if you are going for the chest, you have to tenderize it, or you don't have to tenderize it, but you should tenderize it. And so I don't really want to commit to. Oh, and here you go. You see me using the stake on the chest as an opening. You can do that by doing the upward swing and then 2 shells, and that gives you like a nice upwards poking position. If you just do a regular forwards poke or shell into the worm stake, you will land it in the crutch, which will like move it onto one of its toes and get you the bad hit zone. So yeah, do the upwards one there. Yeah, so I haven't tenderized the chest yet because I really just want to focus on the head until I get the second head break and then fully commit to going for the chest afterwards. It probably would have been better to tenderize the chest, but you know how much I hate using the clutch claw in this game. Now regarding the worm stake, it does something like 100 damage per tick for like 13 ticks, as well as the initial hit and the big hit afterwards. Hey, you see just how unlucky that is. Both of those worm stakes were really unfortunate. Between them, that's like a missed 3,000 damage, which is 5% of Fatalis' health. So those 2 whiffs alone made a pretty big difference, but what can you do? Unfortunately, still no second head break even after the binder, but I reckon I should be close now, and so what I'll do is I'll keep attacking the chest, but when I get a decent head opening, I'll definitely prioritize getting it and try and break the horn. I'm trying to think what other gameplay tips I need to provide. Here we go. Hopefully this is it. Now remember during phase 3, yeah, there you go. During phase 3, the cones are shorter, so you won't have the time to get like the little extra hits or pokes or whatever off that we were going for, like the worm stake. So if you are gonna do the slamming, the slam and the sweep, that's all you'll have time for. The other thing is when you do the advancing slash, you can cancel it into a shell. Again, another really unfortunate whiff because his head didn't push me fully because of the ledge. So that another 1500 damage just completely whiffed. Yeah, you can do the advancing slash and cancel it into a shell, which is just a much quicker way to do the 2 shell into worm stake combo. And so you can do a worm stake during the phase 3 Nova, at least if you're early enough. Although it might leave you trading with the puddle. Anyway, both horns are broken. So at this point now, it's fairly safe for me to tenderize the chest and start going for it. And so that is probably going to be the plan now. Yeah, okay, cool. Gunlance Tendy's move is like a little bit slow, but it also sends you like flying off to the side, which is pretty handy. Now at this point, it's just a case of pretty standard gameplay. You're going to be slamming the chest and dodging whatever you can. I do like to throw in pokes every now and then when I can, but it's a little bit big brain for me, so often you'll see me not bother going for it. And here there's no... Oh, okay, I whiffed the input. Oh well, doesn't matter. Whenever he goes for the downwards breath, if you haven't committed to a really heavy move, then obviously you can go for a free top up of your tenderize. Gunlance tends to have time, although he can snipe you with something on your way down if you're unlucky or late. But generally speaking, it's pretty solid. Now here you have two options for that kind of opening. You can either go for the slam combo or you can do the shells into the worm stake. At the moment, my muscle memory is just to use the slams mostly. However, I'm not necessarily saying that that's like the best option. And alternatively, if you have enough time after the sweep, you can immediately go into the worm stake, depending on the positioning and if you think you'll hit the chest. But yeah, I tend to towards using the slam moves and the sweep moves just because that's what I'm used to doing. So I think I'm going to show it off here. Yeah, there you go. 2 shells, and then you can go immediately into a worm stake. Of course, I misjudged, so I got the toe, but whatever. It's fine. That's like a little bit of the reason why I don't go for the stake as much. It's quite a high commitment move, and if you whiff it, it's like a pretty big sacrifice, because then you have to reload anyway, and so I tend to like towards only using it when I know it's completely safe. But yeah, oftentimes you'll see that even during like this big opening here, I just go for the sweep. Oh, there we go. Nice, I landed one. Finally. Definitely to improve this run, I need to land more worm stakes. That would be ideal. There, I guess I probably shouldn't have worm staked. Whatever. Dragonator is here, so we will fire that. Obviously, the roaming ballista is about to come back soon as well, so that's another free bit of damage. I make a mistake here. I was hoping to like cancel, because I knew he was going to dash all the way to the end, and so I was hoping that if I smoke bombed, he would like stop and start searching for me. No such luck. So I want to use the Dragonator, but he's all the way on the right, so only one of them is going to hit. And so in the end, I just decide to keep damaging like normal. Just slams and sweeps, pretty much. Advancing, not advancing, like rising slash, I should call that. Rising, into slam, into sweep if you have the time. And then you reload. Well, obviously now you don't reload. But you reload, and then you slam again, and then you sweep again. Or after the sweep, you can do a worm stake. Now, you probably know about tanking the Nova by now, but if you heal like now, right before the Nova explodes and hits you, you can survive it. And so it's quite nice for lining up the Dragonator. Now, I know he's only at 5% health left. If I had used the Dragonator when I wanted to use the Dragonator, we probably could have saved like a minute off of this run because it would have killed him. But, you know, no big deal. What can you do? Yeah, that's all there really is to it. It was a pretty simple run. It took us like probably 5 or 10 hours over the course of like learning Gunlance and then getting better at it. Here is the set with the decos on screen, and I'll freeze frame the actual skills themselves and talk about them once we're done scrolling through. But yeah, so we got this run. We learned Gunlance during one stream, and then the next stream we got this run, and so it was a pretty good progression. Do feel free to follow at twitch.tv/conzoa. If you've been watching the streams mostly on YouTube, we are going to be moving to Twitch only, so keep that in mind. You might want to follow there. But yeah, there you go. A pretty solid time in my opinion. The second page has a point of claw boost, which is really handy, a point of coalescence, and a point of handicraft. Regarding handicraft, I'll give the same advice I always give: just run enough to not run out of purple. That will vary depending on your playstyle, so go into the run and just see if you need a point of handicraft, or 2 points of handicraft, or no points of handicraft, and just to make sure you have enough purple sharpness to last you until each Nova, at which point you can obviously just sharpen while you're waiting. So yeah, just run handicraft according to your needs, but otherwise it's just a very typical DPS set. Because I'm using slaplance, you'll see that there's no real like artillery skills or anything niche. It's just a mixture of like agitator and attack boost for DPS, and critical eye and everything for affinity. We tried to get as close to 100 affinity as we can and run 3 points of crit boost. Other than that though, there is the notable existence of 3 points of evade extender. I find evade extender makes it much more consistent to get to the head in time, to get the full punish, like the rising, the slam, and the sweep, and then often like another hit. I found that without 3 points of evade extender, I was struggling to get there in time, because sheathing the Gunlance is really slow, and moving is really slow. So I found that 3 points of evade extender made it much easier and more consistent to punish cones, but you know, your mileage may vary, obviously vary that depending on your needs. And the point of heat guard is just there so that I can keep peak performance during final phase, like to not have to deal with the little flames on the floor. Otherwise, it's just a very, very typical 4-piece Fatalis set. Yeah, I mean, a similar set would probably work for shelling just because 4 pieces of Fatalis will automatically unlock artillery anyway. And so you can just max out artillery, but and like run a point of like capacity boost instead of heat guard. I probably should have done that just so that I had the option to shell if I wanted to. But, you know, I don't think it's like that. That's just you do that if you want. It's probably more optimal, but I'm more than happy to just slap lance in peace. But yeah, hopefully this covers everything. Do let me know if you have any questions. But I would say 1253 over the course of like 6 or 7 hours of getting used to Gunlance from beginning to doing this run is actually, I'm really happy with that. Yeah, well, anyway, I hope you have a lovely day. Take it easy. Bye-bye.